Hello, everybody. Today it's a Friday morning, and I have quite a few things I want to cover today. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about my video that I did that I released yesterday. It's on how to stay motivated with guitar when it feels hard. And I wanted to talk about it because struggled a bit with putting it together because it is hard to stay personally motivated, and I realized for myself how much uh, trying to get songs to sound correct or this kind of thing could be so frustrating. And I also learned another thing in relation to the video that I just released, and that's sometimes you have to get worse before you can get better. And I was struggling with that a little bit too. So if you are looking for some motivation specifically on continuing to play guitar, make sure you check out that video that I just released today. It's called How to Stay Motivated When Guitar Feels Hard. On the topic of getting worse before you get better, I had done a video a couple weeks ago around strumming patterns, and I had always been using a more pretty basic patterns. And I don't know that I use the exact same one every single time for every single song, but I tended not to stray too much to other, I guess, options of songs or options of strumming patterns. And so what I ended up doing is I learned some strumming patterns. I included those in the video. And at the time, I felt comfortable with them. But then when I went back to play some of the songs that I have played in the past, I found it challenging because I was thinking, well, maybe a different pattern would be different. And then I'd be going through the song and realize, oh, the pattern I chose doesn't really work. And so it was a bit of stumbling around and trying to figure out how to make those songs, I guess, good or consistent, because that was the big thing. I felt like I lost some consistency in the way I was playing. So, just a heads up if you end up trying some new strumming patterns on some of your songs and it just doesn't quite work out like you expected, don't be surprised and don't give up. Just keep going. And then I actually thought about for certain songs, in if you look up on Ultimate Guitar, a lot of times it will tell you the type of strumming pattern to choose, but making sure that if you use that pattern, that you're using that every time instead of messing around with a whole bunch of different patterns. I think it's good to experiment with them, but I think if you want to get to a point of being consistent and having the song sound consistent, then you really need to commit to one because I found it. I don't know. It just felt uncomfortable, and I know that when you're learning something new, it's gonna be uncomfortable, so don't be surprised about that. So anyway, moving on to my next topic. I in this last couple of weeks, I have gotten some great feedback from some of the people that have been watching on YouTube, and there's a lot of people with a lot more experience than I have. And I really appreciate all of that feedback that I've gotten, and it's gonna help me become better, and I hope I can share what I've learned with you so that you can also become better. And it also made me realize how important that feedback is. I think for this last year, I've been learning guitar mostly on my own and just from watching other YouTube videos and just kind of trying to amass information to be able to learn. So it is kind of nice to have someone else like from the outside be able to look at what you're doing and give you some kind of feedback. So for those of you who need that sort of critique or feedback, try to find someone that can watch you and give you some feedback, whether that's, and it doesn't have to be a teacher. It can be someone in say a group or someone in your community or just a friend that also plays guitar or plays some other instrument can be helpful. So think about that in the upcoming weeks, how you can get some constructive criticism is what I would call it, because I do think it is really important. And while it's hard to hear a lot of times, it's helpful to improve up level your skills really. Another thing I thought about this week is that I've focused so much emphasis on learning guitar and playing guitar these last few weeks. I sort of have stepped back and not, while I have been singing while I'm practicing, I haven't really focused a lot of attention on developing my singing skills or really haven't written too many songs. And I think when you're thinking about your overall experience with music, for me, I want to kind of push in all these different directions a little bit. So the next few, I guess, videos will likely be more in that vein of trying to recapture, kind of balance things out a little bit. I will continue to do some videos on guitar, of course, but I'm going to try to focus on these other areas as well to make it more of a well rounded experience of the singer, songwriter, and playing guitar all together. So that brings me to the next topic, which is I wanted to talk. I had originally planned to do a longer video on this topic, but I decided I'm just going to share some of these today. That way, maybe over the weekend, you can get some practice in. But I went through and started thinking about a lot of the songs that were the first songs that I played. And then I also went back and looked at the video that I did on learn guitar the fun and easy way. And that video, I'll include a link in the description. But in that video, I provided a link to some chord diagrams. And so what I did is I thought about from those chords that you can learn from the chord diagrams, which songs would be kind of fun to play. And I tried to pick some things that maybe were a little bit more upbeat, I guess, not too slow and not too hard to play, meaning not too many chord changes altogether. So you can give these a try. One of the first songs I learned, and I'll list out my five that I would suggest. The first one is Sugar Sugar by the Archies. And this one just has kind of a nice upbeat feel to it. And it doesn't have too many chords. It's just D, G, A, and C. So you can just use those four chords for that. And that is a nice, fun one to get started with. That was actually my first, I think it was the very first song that I learned. The next song is Knocking on Heaven's Door by Bob Dylan. Again, this only has a few chords, I think G, D, A minor, and C. So pretty easy to pick that up using those chords that I mentioned. And what I like about that one, although it's a little bit tricky to get the timing with the knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door, the line in there is a bit tricky of where you're playing and where to say the words. That can be a little bit tricky, but I think that's a good challenge early on. And it's not hard because you're not having to remember too many chords. The third song on my list for beginners is Three Little Birds by Bob Marley. And it's funny, when I was in college, I had some friends that really liked to play the song a lot on a keyboard. And I just remember that pretty clearly. And I was thinking this song is kind of a nice one because it's a little bit upbeat. It's pretty easy. I think most people have heard it or know of this song. And it's just a happy song. So give that one a try. And that one has, actually, I didn't write down what the chords were for that particular one, but all these are on the chord sheet that I mentioned. The next one that I've sung recently was Jolene. And that one has three chords, E, G, and D. And that is Dolly Parton's song. And it's if you have a higher voice, you can just keep it in the original key that it was written in. But if you have a lower one, you'll have to adjust it a bit. That's what I ended up having to do. And if any of you have heard Miley Cyrus's version, I think hers is a bit lower than the original. So check that out. I would suggest listening to both of those versions before you give that one a try. They're both really great. The next one is Ring of Fire by Johnny Cash. And I also like Walk the Line by Johnny Cash, but the Ring of Fire is, again, fairly easy to play, but it can be a little bit tricky on the timings of when you're playing the chords, so keep that in mind. But if you for all of these that I listed, you can really just listen to the original maybe 4 or 5 times, then try playing it, and then try playing it a few times, and then you're gonna have to keep going back to the original probably to get the gist of how that's gonna, work, and, that will enable you to play it fairly well. So then there's another song I said I was gonna share 5, but I have a 6th one, and that is, I watched, Breakfast Club again, this '80s, John Hughes movie, and, they have the song in there, Simple Minds, Don't You Forget About Me, and when I heard that song, I thought, I mean, really, let's step back. Anytime I hear any song, I wonder, "Oh, I wonder if I could play that on guitar." But that particular one, I just thought, "Well, maybe that's gonna be kinda hard to play." And the chorus for sure is very easy to do, and anyone who knows the song, there's a lot of la la la's at the end, but if you've heard it hundreds of times like I have this song, then, it'll be pretty easy to pick that up. So give that a try. That's kind of a bonus one that I just recently tried out. And it doesn't, again, that one doesn't have very many chords. I think it has 5 chords, but again, they're all on that sheet that I shared. So make sure to download that sheet before you get started on learning these, unless you're using Ultimate Guitar or some other tool, or you have downloaded some music for these already that has the little chord pictures for you or the chord diagrams. That ends my list of songs to share. So for this Friday, I wanted to also give you a challenge to try something new this week in your whatever it's if it's something new trying to write a song, something new trying to sing a song you haven't sung before, or the last thing is obviously the guitar, try something you haven't tried before. I am actually going to be heading to the guitar store in a little bit here this Friday and checking out some things. And I actually thought about grabbing some picks and giving that a try. I know I talked about not needing it in previous videos, but now a lot of people have indicated, yeah, you might want to try it. So I might have to pick up a pick and do some experimentation with that, and then I'll share my learnings and experience with you all in a future video. The other thing is that uh, I've noticed this in the past with my guitar that has a bit of a buzzing sound, and I've been procrastinating on what to do about it. Previously, I had changed the strings on it, but when I changed the strings, the buzzing went away, but then as soon as the strings get more worn in or worn out or whatever you wanna call it, the buzzing sound sort of comes back. So I'm thinking of maybe getting some new strings today as well, so that maybe another video showing how to change the strings on the guitar if anybody, is thinking about doing that soon. I'll probably have a video on that when I get around to doing that task, we'll call it. So think about what you want to do this week, and I will catch up with you all next week. I hope you have a good time with your practice and you enjoy some of the songs that I shared with you, and have a great weekend. Take care, all. Bye.